met with one of the directors who I worked under, and he put me forward to a couple of companies. Sometimes who you know, not what you know in that situation.
Still that case, I think, specifically in our industry.
I was there for 1 year and it taught me how not to run a company. What they tended to do was they would win a contract and the two directors would go and buy themselves a car. We just had subcontractors banging at the door wanting payment.
So obviously you were in project management for a long period of time. How has it changed from then to now?
Design and build was a very different industry then to what it is now. It didn't have skilled or professional people in it. Today's D&B industry is very, very different. We got interviewed there for a job. That led to working for Jimmy Choo's parent company, which led to working for Bally shoes. It was a roll-on effect in the fashion industry.
Doing the best job you possibly can for every individual client, because you never know what that client will lead to. It's almost like infinite possibilities and recommendations.
Sometimes you could spend a fortune tendering and you were never going to win it. That's been a big issue in our industry.
I'm intrigued to know what your opinion is of the industry as it is now and what it is like going forward.
When you see ISG going, they're desperately sad. I don't know if we learnt our lessons.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Plenty of topics I want to dive into today.
Yeah. I
always like to start at the start for you, if you want to give us a little bit of history about yourself before you kind of came into the building industry.
Okay, yeah. I think probably start from leaving sixth form college maybe.
Yeah.
So at school I just normally kind of just managed to get by, 6 GCSEs to do A-levels. A-level grades just enough to get to uni. So within myself I always knew that I wanted to start my own business, but I didn't know what in. So at 18 I went to London uni, and because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I did business studies.
As everyone does.
As everyone does, exactly. I lasted 6 weeks.
Did you?
Yeah, I think for 2 weeks of that I met a girl, so yeah. I mean I really didn't study much. I left, and obviously my dad wasn't too amused. So I then got a temp job with a local firm to this town called Associated Asphalt, which is a civil engineering company. And basically I was holding a staff, to rain and sleet and whatever. It's a pretty miserable existence. And then one day we're on an A road, I think around Woking or something, and this guy turned up in his BMW, got out with a smart suit on, and I thought, ooh. And I said to my boss, the engineer, I said, well, what does he do? And he said, oh, he's a quantity surveyor. So I thought, oh, I'll have a bit of that. So the next day I drove up to Nottingham. I heard there's 3 women to every guy or something like that. You couldn't do this now. Yeah. I literally went to the building faculty, knocked on all the doors to the lecturers, got onto 2 courses, quantity surveying and a building surveying one. Decided to take the quantity surveying, drove back home, told my dad what I'd done, got into Nottingham, Trent Uni, and I was off to Australia.
Why Australia? He sent you to Australia?
No. Oh. I went to Australia because I'd saved enough money that I could now travel.
Brilliant.
Come back from travelling and have a uni place. So
I think travelling is really important for I did it briefly, by the sounds of it, not as long as you did, but I did it very briefly. I went through Asia, and I think in terms of like life experience and cultural experience, travelling is really important.
It's massive. Yeah. My youngest daughter's done a lot of travelling, and you see different areas, different politics, different economies. You meet people, and I do think you come back more of a grown up.
You do. No, I completely agree. So I went with my partner at the time as well, and she wouldn't mind me saying, but she was a little bit reserved before she went out, and she came back like just a little bit more free and like within herself as well. So it was important for her and important for me. It's important for any like younger person who wants to obtain life experience, cultural experience. Like I said, traveling is definitely the one, without doubt. And I feel like Australia is the main place people want to go.
It was when I was that age.
It still is now.
And now it has come back again.
Oh, has it gone round?
I think it's gone full circle. Yeah. Because I think in between Thailand became very popular.
That's where I went, to be honest with you.
Cambodia and things like that. So, I agree with you.
Yeah. So you went to Australia for a couple of years by the sounds of it?
No, only for a few months. So I went back, I came back for the September so I could go to Nottingham to go to uni, where I was studying quantity surveying.
And then, so did you do your full uni degree at Nottingham, did you?
I did. I did quantity surveying, and then I did an additional year in building management.
Oh, okay.
So I had building management and QS background.
Yep.
Leaving uni, there weren't many jobs around, as I think it's the same now.
Yeah.
It's really difficult for graduates. I went back to the civil engineering company that I worked for after I dropped out of the first uni in London, and met with one of the directors who I worked under, and he put me forward to a couple of companies. So, you know, it's sometimes who you know, not what you know in that situation. Unfortunately,
still that case, I think.
Still is.
In specifically in our industry, it is a case of who you know and what you know. Like, I've recorded a few podcasts now of people who, like, their client base stems off relationships that they had either previously or relationships they've formed like recently as well. So primarily it is who you know, not what you know.
Yeah, unfortunately, but
yeah.
it does help. So they managed to get me a couple of interviews, and I joined a company called Schofields, which was basically a civil engineering company, but as a QS there. It wasn't the best job in the world. No. It was midday to midnight, 6 days a week, plus an hour commute each way. Again, you know, in the rain on a motorway, it just wasn't very fulfilling. However, it gets you experience. What it did teach me is that I didn't want to be in civil engineering, and I didn't want to be a full-time QS. So I applied for other jobs, and I was thinking, I even took a pay cut and went into project management, which was a more rounded experience. And I joined a company called Anchor Housing Trust, which basically was a charity, but it gave me a great learning experience, because I did everything from doing a set of drawings, the scope of works, going out to tender, getting all the quotes in, appointing the contract, managing the works. Small scale, but it's the same philosophy, whether it's a big job or a small job.
Same concept and valuable experience as well, because not a lot of people who will go from concept through to X or concept to completion or however you did it.
Yeah.
So valuable experience to be able to do that.
Exactly. So I did that for about 2.5 years down in Worthing, and as I said, it gave me a really good project management experience, and it also helped out a lot of elderly and disabled people down there, because it was more like extensions and ramps on buildings and things like that. Then I went to work for a company called City West, which was a design and build company based in Reading. It was actually my brother-in-law's company. And I was there for 1 year, and it taught me how not to run a company.
Oh, really?
Invaluable experience.
Probably more valuable than being at a company that teaches you how to, I'd say, to ones that teach you how not to, because you learn from their mistakes. You haven't got to make them yourself.
And I take it through now.
Yeah.
Every day I do the opposite of what they did. Because it's my brother-in-law's company and I saw how he ran it, it obviously caused some issues, you know, or put it this way, it didn't cause issues, it shed light on some things.
Wow, yeah.
Because what they tended to do was they would win a contract, and the two directors would go and buy themselves a car, and or whatever they wanted, and we just had subcontractors banging at the door wanting payment, and it was, you know, it just wasn't for me.
It's a unsustainable way to run a business, I think, because if you're not paying, you know, subbies, like every business, basically at the core of the business is the subbies that they use. So if you're not paying them or not treating them right, they're going to go elsewhere. And how are you supposed to develop trustworthy relationships with supply chain? It's now and impossible.
100%, and that's what I've taken through, is we pay everyone on time. Then when you need something done really quick, they'll jump for you, because they'll know they'll get paid. You know, 30 days later on the dot, they're paid.
And that's an issue of the industry, is the payment side of things. So the guys who do pay on time or even before, if they have no issues with the people paying them, they're always going to jump for them, because they know that if they don't jump for them, the people that they're going to start using someone else. And then if the subby does go elsewhere, they're at risk of working for someone who's not going to pay them. And with a big bit of news that's gone on recently, and other companies that have unfortunately gone under, there's a lot of supply chain that have gone with them. So it's
I know, it's desperately sad.
It is really sad. It's infuriating to hear it. So the fact that you pay people on time is obviously quite refreshing to hear.
Yeah, very, very important to me. So that was probably the biggest lesson to learn. And also, I'm talking about mid-90s here. So design and build was a very different industry then to what it is now.
Yeah.
It was, charlatan's not the word to use, but it had... it didn't have skilled or professional people in it. Today's D&B industries are very, very different.
It is, and I think also nowadays everything's under a spotlight. So if there are charlatans out there, then they're magnified because of the industry we're in and because of the world we live in nowadays. You can't really get away with anything. Not that you'd want to get with anything, but any corners cut, then they get exposed, and then everyone hears about someone who's done a bad job. No one ever hears about the good jobs. Everyone hears about someone who's done a bad job.
Exactly. So I lasted at City West for 1 year. It just wasn't for me, because he was my brother-in-law and he gave me a chance. He was a bit upset, but you got to look after your own career. And then I was very fortunate. I actually then joined a company called HQ Global Workplaces as a project manager. Now, HQ Global Workplaces were two words, serviced office provider or flex space provider, co-working, the buzzwords now. And that was in 1998. And back then in the flex market, there was only three providers. It was HQ, who I work for, MWB and Regis. And you look today, I was reading an article, 25 million square feet in London of service space, 60 operators. There are 650 different serviced offices. Wow. And growing, all the landlords getting into it. So it stood me in a very good position for today's market post-COVID, because there were very few people who have flex space experience from 1998. Obviously Mark Dixon for Regis, which obviously had his own company, and there's a couple of people that I worked with back then who are still in it, but there are very few of us. So it has been a bit of a USB for us.
So what did your project management role entail? Was it?
Well, I was client side.
Okay.
Rather, so basically, we were opening a building every month. So it's very exciting times. We had a very entrepreneurial MD at the time called Peter Kershaw, who and Peter Allport also. Peter Allport was the sales side, Peter Kershaw was from the property side. Made a lot of money. He sold the company twice over, and he's done very well for himself, and deservedly. So I'd be client side basically with a team of consultants. We'd go out to tender, appoint a contractor. Ironically, a lot of our work was done by ISG back in those days, because Peter Kershaw came from Stanhope, which was the break off to become our Interiors Group.
Yep.
David King, who was that person who did that originally. So it was basically going to the sites, managing it from the client side, making sure it's finished, handing it over to the operations team, so they could do their centre readiness, put all the desks in place, all the flower plots in place, everything they needed to do on the marketing side. And then my role became also on the facility side to make sure that all the maintenance was done. It was very exciting times, because we were opening a building every month. So
rapid growth.
Yeah, rapid growth. Regis at the time were one every 3 days.
Yep.
So we weren't quite as up there.
One every 3 days?
One every 3 days.
Wow, that's incredible.
So we had quite a few London operations, some in the Thames Valley, then we went up to Manchester, Edinburgh, and then we decided to expand across Europe, which we did: Madrid, Frankfurt, Munich, Paris. And then a year later, it didn't really work out. We had to go around closing them all up.
Oh, really?
I don't know too much of the details why it didn't work, but maybe it was just too difficult to manage from afar. But they were fun times, really good colleagues, got very happy memories, and they're still my client today. So I'll explain that bit. But so they are a company that's close to my heart. So HQ Global Workplaces eventually became Leo, EOG. They're now known as Argyle today. So I was there for 5 years, as I said. There was a dot-com crash in about 2000. People were starting to be made redundant. It wasn't going quite as well as before. I asked if I could be made redundant because I wanted to set up my own, basically, consultancy. They said no. So what I did is I worked for my employee during the day, and then weekends and evenings I did planning, applications for local residential friends and things like that. Some, moonlighting type work to get enough money up to give me 6 months' salary, to be able to, in a year's time, go. Right. Yes. I'm going to ask again.
Yeah.
Hopefully you say yes, or we can come to an agreement. So a year's time, I did soften up the FD, CFO at the time and say, can you back me? A very nice guy called Graham Butler, and he said, yeah, sure he will. And I went to the, it's MD in those days rather than CEO, and asked again. And actually, we didn't do what we agreed was that for 6 months, I would be on a freelance basis 3 days a week. So that would enable me to have some income. I had some money saved, about 6 months worth of money. And I could go off and find my own clients. So that's what we did, end of 2002. After 6 months, everyone was happy, and it became a more permanent type of deal. And this is with Argyle, as called now. And we had a retainer per building rather than 3 days a week.
Okay.
And that enabled us to start MWA and, work on that basis.
And that was the start of MWA then?
That was the start of MWA.
So was that primarily planning consultancy?
No, it was project management,
yep,
quantity surveying, and facilities management consultancy.
Specific to the co-working space, or did you kind of...
It's initially specific to co-working, and then that developed, and we got our different clients, but commercial occupiers in London, basically.
Just a short break from the episode, which I really hope you guys are enjoying. This podcast has been invaluable for me, and I hope it's providing a lot of value for yourselves. If you could just do me one small favor and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform, not only does it help me and the podcast, but it also helps share stories and insights from the industry that we find ourselves in. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. And then how long did you run it as just a consultancy as such?
Well, then in 5 years. And then in 2007, Argyle, coming back to the same client, basically the COO at the time, Tim Giles, approached me because they had signed we'd been negotiating with ISG, ironically again, for the fit out of 2 buildings in Pall Mall. They had already signed a lease, but ISG were too high in their proposed contract sum. And it just didn't make the deal work. So Tim approached me and said, Matt, how about you run the job? We'll increase your fee. You charge prelims, right? The cost to run the job on site, and we see how it goes. So I said, well, yes, why not? Let's have a go. And we loved it. Okay, the job came in on time. It came in 250,000 less. Yeah. So,
and were you working for ISG, or was that direct?
No, MWA, as MWA.
Cool.
So this is construction management route. And we thought, well, we enjoy this. And they did. So the client. So we then developed this way of working further. And we looked at, if we went to Howden, say, for a kitchen, we would give them the trade discount we have and then have an open book markup.
Oh, okay.
And we still do that way. We're worth of working now.
So like a cost plus?
Cost plus.
So you're protecting yourselves?
Protecting ourselves, but
also
also giving the clients best value, totally auditable accounts or on a project-by-project basis. And, they're not getting they're getting our rate.
Yeah, how did you find the reaction from them? Because sometimes, did they have like a budget limit that they would go up to in terms of the cost plus, or was it more like, we want this, we'll run open book, and whatever it gets to, you're still going to get this, but
No, it'll be costing the job beforehand.
Yeah, sure.
Based on an open book basis.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So then they could sign it off or value engineer where they need to.
Sure.
Very rarely do they increase things at that stage. They do as a variation later, and then want the program to stay the same, but that's a different matter, isn't it?
Sure.
So we've gone from we're offering consultancy and construction management. We were then recommended to Net-a-Porter.
Okay.
And Net-a-Porter at the time had 150 staff. They were based in Whiteley Shopping Centre, which is Holland Parkway, and we had the interview there. And we were very fortunate enough to win that job based on the same philosophy, open book, and cost plus, basically. And that was a bit of a turning point for us, because Net-a-Porter, we ended up doing every single Net-a-Porter job they've ever done in the UK, which is about 14 jobs.
Wow.
They now have about 2,500 staff in the UK. We've done, they took space at the top of Westfield Shepherd's Bush, which was originally earmarked to be a public swimming pool. It's got a huge ceiling height, 6 metre ceiling height. I had the CEO and founder was a lady called Natalie Mezinet, a very entrepreneurial French-American lady who's won Businesswoman of the Year, and Net-a-Porter is a household name, very high end. So we were, and then from there, the COO of Net-a-Porter knew the COO of Jimmy Choo, because Net-a-Porter actually distribute for Jimmy Choo. So we got interviewed there for a job. We won that project. That led to working for Jimmy Choo's parent company, which led to working for Bally shoes, because it's the same company.
Just the roll-on effect.
It was a roll-on effect in the fashion industry.
Which is, it says something about just doing a good job, doing the best job you possibly can for every individual client, because you never know what that client will lead to. It's almost like infinite possibilities and recommendations.
100%.
So you were facilitating the projects as well as the consultancy side as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
At that stage.
And were you just employing subcontractors to do all the work for you, or did you?
Yeah. So we carried on that route for a few years, and we picked up some fantastic clients, as I said, Net-a-Porter, Asian Vocateur, Nike, Converse, not on the high street. Some real household names, whilst working with Argyle as well.
How about the difficulty in facilitating those projects? Because working with the higher clientele as such, like these people, I assume that their requirements are slightly different to others. So were they difficult projects to facilitate?
Not particularly. I mean, there's kind of like I'm in fashion, darling. You need to do it straight away.
Here now.
Exactly. There's definitely a bit of that goes on. But, a lot of those fashion companies, they spend, interestingly, a lot of people say, oh, it's really high end. It's not. They spend their money in certain areas.
Okay.
A lot of their offices are very open plan, so there's no offices, which obviously cuts down the costs considerably, as you know. But they'll spend their money in the boardroom, the reception, the sample area, or where people see it. So it's not as difficult as you feel.
Yeah.
But
So but by the sounds of it, it kind of rolled out to dealing with many, many clients. So once you've dealt with the likes of these guys, how did you manage to achieve further clientele from that?
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
Until 18 months ago, we've never had a BD person.
It's incredible. So obviously it's testament to the kind of projects that you guys do and the effort you put in.
Well, yeah, we believe totally in the client comes first, and every client has to feel special. They're the only one, that as far as they're concerned, and that's so important.
And also word of mouth at the end of the day is free marketing, really.
Yeah.
But I say free, it's not free because obviously the time element that goes into it, but in terms of monetary, it's free because you don't have to spend on any type of ad spend. It's literally just do a good job and they will then recommend you. So,
and people move around.
Yeah.
So someone from Net-a-Porter then went to ASOS. A few of them did actually, and from that we got recommended to ASOS. So we did their ASOS's reception area in London, and then we did their new head office HQ in Paris. So that's really also how our clientele has developed. Okay. And when you've been in the game a bit longer, you have more people, more people, and more people move. So that was our way of working for many years, and I do feel like we've tried to move to the times. Just winning a job on a project management basis is tough going, and there's some big boys out there. Why would they go and come to us necessarily? Quantity surveying, it's a valid qualification and trade, but is it a dying skill slightly? I think it's good if you can combine the both together. You get 2 in 1. So we're thinking we want to go into more design and build, and we were starting to go that way, and then COVID hit. Yes. So and then basically everything stopped, as everyone knows.
I just want to touch back on the project management side. So obviously you were in project management for a long period of time. How has it changed from then to now? And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but there's a stigma around project management, which I'm sure you didn't do, of that, they accept the backhanders, or they accept something to be able to take projects. So was that more prevalent then compared to now?
I don't know about now because I'm not in it. But some D&Bs will put project managers forward.
Because
I wouldn't necessarily say there was backhanders there, but if you could keep the seat warm for them to get the job, I think that might not have been unheard of.
Yeah, sure.
And it's that's been a big issue in our industry. Sometimes you could spend a fortune tendering. Spend a lot of work, and you were never going to win it.
I mean, we're by no means am I going to mention any names or anything, but we have experienced recently where, in my opinion, I think something like that has happened with a tender that we've put out. So and
it's just not fair, is it?
It's not, especially because you genuinely believe that you're in with a shot, and like you said, the time element that you put into the tender, the facility, the energy, the time of different staff, estimators, designers, everything that goes into it, and then you get to the end and you're kind of thinking that was all just a waste of time, and we were never going to win the job.
I'm not so sure. It was PMs, agents, especially less so now. I mean, the big boys, I don't think any of it goes, and we've never worked with agents until we are trying to get on with agents now, because obviously that's a great source of work.
Sure.
In the since we've had our latest BD lady for a year, and she's opening a few doors, but you have the agents put someone forward, so you don't know if you're going to win that job because they might be pushing someone else, and that's frustrating as well. I'd hope not, but
I suppose that's the risk we take, isn't it?
That's the risk we take.
For these sorts of
and
things.
Some people will recommend you more than other people, and that the adage again is do a good job.
Yep.
As far as I'm always concerned, is if you do a really good job for someone, you don't need to wine and dine them. I've never been like that.
Yeah.
Just do a really good job, act for them, make them look good, and they'll come back and use you again.
Yeah, it's a great philosophy. So by the sounds of it, COVID hit, and that
COVID
was
hit, we were just doing quite well. Yeah. Again, we changed what we did.
Yeah.
We didn't lose money in COVID. I didn't pay myself.
Yeah.
We made a very small sum, but we were literally putting stickers out.
Yeah.
We would do anything we could. We were doing plans for people. We were doing the 3 metre rule stickers everywhere, and glass screens, and doing whatever we could, as everyone was.
Sure.
Shame we couldn't have just become a PPE supplier, really. Could have been retired by now.
A few of those getting caught out there at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
We won't go into that though. But by the sounds of it, it pivoted then during the COVID period, the business.
Yeah, well, we decided then to go design and build.
Yeah.
And that's it. Forget the construction management arm, forget the PM arm and the QS arm. But we needed a bit of expertise in-house. There was a company in Ascot called CBS Interiors who were struggling. So we, and then they went under. So basically, it sounds quite ruthless, but it wasn't really. We went in and bought the assets, their domain name, the IT,
Yep.
and a couple of their key staff.
Yep.
One particularly called Alan, who's still here 4 or 5 years later. He's our projects director and furniture director, and he had 25 years D&B experience. All our work previously was in London, because that's where my contacts tend to be.
Difficult market, that one.
Yeah, and his contacts are in the Thames Valley.
Okay.
We're 6 miles from Reading. We've never done a job there. I mean, it's mad, isn't it? Because Reading's a big old town with a lot of business.
Plenty of work going on there.
So that's opened up. So now we can legitimately say that we serve London and the corridor, the Thames, the M4 corridor from there to Oxford.
Yeah.
So now we're working in places like Maidenhead, Slough, Basingstoke, places like that, which has opened up more doors, different types of clients.
So how come you wanted to go into the D&B rather than the project management side of things?
Easier sell.
Yeah.
To be totally honest, it's moving the company with the times. As I said before, the D&B industry is a very different industry. I think it reflects more what I'm like, about being professional, trying to do a good job.
Yeah.
Not trying to do a fast buck.
Yeah.
And also, having been a PM, it was very interesting because I could see how design and build companies were working. So I could take the good parts and the not so good parts. The good parts were, some of them were machines with infinite amount of designers, estimators, contracts managers, fantastic. The less good side is, sometimes they'd win a job and the director was never seen again until the champagne was popping at the end of the job.
Take all the credit.
Their aftercare was non-existent because they were looking at the next job.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to do any small jobs under 100 grand. Very familiar pattern with some D&Bs. And I understand why, because sometimes they just cannot make enough money from it. By the time you've got all the health and safety, or you're up against a 2-man band who do the work themselves, you're never going to win it.
That is true.
But that's again where we're different. We'll take a wall down at £1,000.
Because I suppose that once you take that wall down at £1,000 and you leave the client happy, they might in a year's time think, we need to move now. We've got £250,000 budget. I remember MWA actually, they took that wall down, they did a very good job. Let's favour them and let's give them a chance to price it.
100%. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And also we offer like a space planning service.
Yep.
So we charge a minimum amount, covers our costs. So if they need to change the office around, we kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
And we can talk to them and then say that we'll put a budget to it. And they might not use us, but they might do. At least we're in with a shout.
Of course. So how has the team sort of developed as well and grown since you switched over to design and build?
Well, quite interestingly, I always like to have a PM, involved from start to finish, which is very un-D&B.
Yeah. It's
pre-con and then delivery. And we have an internal debate about this, I'm probably on my own. But I used to find it very frustrating if I had someone I really got on with, and then as soon as the contract's signed, they disappear, and I'm stuck with someone else who doesn't know what the previous guy did, or maybe we didn't get on as well, or know the history on it. So we have a bit of debate about that, but we are really conforming and going, pre-con, delivery. And then we have project coordinators who are in the back doing a lot of the donkey work, a lot of the chasing, a lot of the orders. We have a separate PO person.
Yep.
We built up a really good design team now of 5 internal and 1 virtually full-time freelancer. So we can cover all bases there as well.
So you've got quite a big team by the sounds of it.
Yeah, we're about 45 now. Okay. But we've set up a facilities arm as well, which is where I think we are a bit different. So come back to the regular client, Argyle, who I worked for 22 years ago, and they approached us and said, Matt, a contact of mine headed up buying back the company about 3 years ago, and they had taken all the FM in-house and they didn't want it in-house anymore. They wanted to re-outsource it. But pressures from their, investors and everything, they obviously wanted everything done as quickly as possible, as everyone does. So I think within a period of about 10 weeks, we agreed to set up a facilities arm for them, which involved tutoring staff. It involved setting up a help desk, all the FM software, employing engineers, supervisors, and then basically running their 30 buildings.
Oh, okay.
And then since then, we've just renewed our contract, thankfully, and we're expanding that client list. And we don't want to be a big FM provider. We want to be boutique. So, on our list is Argyle have 30 prime London sites, Sotheby's, good name, Hermes, the fashion designer, another company called Frameworks, so about 7. We're talking to a couple of others, Dr. Martens, so a really nice
client base by the sound.
Client base,
really
based in London, so the engineers can go on foot. You don't need to worry too much about cars and vans for them. So that's our offering now, is literally design, build, maintain, furnish is what our logo or our branding says.
And how does the FM side of things tie in with the design and build side of things? So
hopefully, that's the intention. You've got to remind the guys on interiors about facilities and facilities about interiors.
Do you find there's an internal clash between the two?
There isn't really. It's just the mindset. Because they're in their own. But if you're thinking about it logically, and this is how we're trying to work things, if we're design team are designing, get facilities involved, where do you need access hatches, things like that, maintenance side. When you're handing over or before it, offer the clients our maintenance package. They can take it or leave it, but it also highlights to them that they need to do certain maintenance to keep their warranties in place, and what their statutory obligations are. So we feel that we're providing that service, and we're telling them anyway whether they want to use us or not. It depends what client it is. They, we're working with Grosvenor now, that they have all their own maintenance, so we don't get involved with that side. But others will want to.
It's interesting to hear, because I was actually going to lead on to asking you what you guys do differently, because if you strip everything back, essentially we're all the same. Like the D&B is the same kind of thing. There's differences obviously in each individual project, but it's all the sort of same type of thing. So it's interesting to hear what you guys do differently. Yeah,
well, I think the difference is obviously the FM side, the open book.
Yeah, definitely.
And the small works. So I think that's probably where, and we are, as a CEO, I'm exceptionally hands-on, and maybe a bit too much hands-on. Who knows?
But you've got to drive the business, and you've got to
drive the business, and I care passionately about it.
Sure.
So, it's my baby for 22 years. I don't want it to fail.
What I'm actually quite interested to ask you actually is, you've got a massive co-working background with like your previous history in the industry. So how do you think co-working's changed from then to now? Because like you said, the amount of co-working space there is now in London itself is ridiculous. So, I know one of the driving factors was COVID, probably, I'd say, but how do you think it changed, and where do you think it's getting to?
Well, when I first started, I'm sounding old now. So you had a business centre, normally in the basement, because their staff wouldn't have any windows. That's how it goes. You'd have basically secretaries down there.
Yeah.
So basically the clients would go down saying, can you type this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very different. Can you post this?
Yeah.
And then franking machines. And then at one building in Windsor used to be a trolley lady. So, she used to go around and try and sell cakes and sandwiches. And, it was very personal, but very, today archaic, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm talking, just about when email came out. So you're talking about those days, so about 98. Email from me came out in 98. And then it's just developed. Obviously the likes of Regis came in, and they have their different brands of spaces, etc. But WeWork is obviously the big one that everyone...
That massive.
Obviously, they went into Chapter 11 in America. they brought up so much office space. I mean, aren't they London's #1 landlord after the government? I think.
Yeah,
So,
potentially. That in fact, WeWork fascinated me so much. I don't even know why, but I had a weird fascination with WeWork because I used to watch a lot of Adam Newman's interviews and contents.
have you seen his Netflix?
I have, yeah, and I watched his. I think it was Bloomberg maybe did one on YouTube. And what fascinated me the most was him as a leader, about how he could captivate an audience and like drive a community of people towards one direction, and how he almost sold WeWork as a tech company when realistically they were, like you said, they're just a landlord. They're just a landlord renting space out. So I got fascinated by WeWork and how he used to do things, because he changed the industry for co-working space, I think.
Absolutely, and potentially a bit dominated it for a period of time. But it was, the having the bar with the beer, wasn't it? And table tennis tables, it did change things dramatically, and probably for the best, let's be honest, because you look at some providers, the Fours of the world, a TOG like that, they're together now, fantastic space. We had one of their offices in Hammersmith for a while, and it's fantastic, top floor, views over London, all the facilities you want, gyms and what have you. So they've really changed. I mean, but different people are doing different things. So we're working with Grosvenor Flex at the moment. They're basically, they call themselves Flex, but they're basically really 3-year deals.
Yeah.
And the space is for like 12 to 20 people with their own meeting rooms, kitchen area. Whereas Argyle is, I think their average office is 4-person. So people are doing different areas. Some others used to leave open plan space to carve up as and when clients looked, but I don't think people have the imagination to do that. I think they just want to see it. But now they're providing everything. So you've got your gyms, as I said, everywhere's got to have showers, especially post-COVID, your locker space, your bike storage, your lounge areas, your hot desking areas, or your permanent desk area to your office area. And some have honesty bars,
What's that?
An honesty bar is where you can have a Snickers, but you've got to put your name down.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So I don't know how many people put down their name, or they get charged £1.
Yeah, I see.
And others provide that for free.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like the needs and wants behind the workspace has changed so drastically. It's almost like an employee-led industry now, where there's so much more demands to what they need from being at work, because of the whole they were working at home, looking at it from a holistic perspective rather than just like in the office industry. Like, people were working from home during COVID, and coming back they demand separate things and certain things, and in co-working, because it's so competitive, there's so many out there, they need to be providing the potential clientele or the people who are going to use the space with a lot more. So like gyms, like you said, and whatever else, bars for people to drink at. And
the guy I referred to at the beginning, who was my boss when I started out in Flex Space, Peter Kershaw, he always used to say, you've got to please 90% of people 80% of the time. So if they go into your serviced office, most people have to like it. There's no point in putting some purple on the walls that most people go, we don't want it, because they won't take the space. It's got to be either contemporary or bit more, depending where you are. If you're in Mayfair, it's going to be a different brand to if you're in Hoxton, isn't it?
Yeah, very true.
And you've got to look at that,
What's the plans for MWA just going forward? Like, obviously you guys have positioned yourself really, really well. You do things a little bit differently to other people.
Well, branding is one of the things. I want to get our name out there more, because some people say, we haven't heard of you, and it's because we weren't in D&B or FM. I think we are getting our name out there now. We've won a couple of really good jobs against bigger competitors. When we tendered for Grosvenor, we came top out of everyone in that tender list. We won Brentford Football Club recently, which was a bit of kudos. We were really delighted with that. So going forward, I'm going to give more power to the management.
Is that you taking a back seat, or is that...
No.
It's
so we can expand.
Okay.
Because I feel that we probably got to a stage in the company where just me driving it. My wife is also a director, but she works part-time in the business, but she's HR. But me driving it's probably where we can get to, and by getting more buy-in, retain our best employees, recruit some really good new employees, and take it forward to, we'd like to grow by another 50% over the next 5 years, which I think is realistic.
Of course.
It's not really going overboard, and I think that's easily achievable. Obviously, we've got this podcast. There's I was on LinkedIn a few weeks back, and I saw this company on there called Flex and the City. Flex and the City, sorry. And they're specialising in flex space. And I thought, oh, well, they're interesting. And they're doing more. They were doing quite a few articles about different providers I wasn't aware of or hadn't been to their buildings. And they're two young ladies who are really ambitious. So we decided to sponsor them at their awards, their first awards ceremony, which is in about 3 weeks' time in London. So that's getting our name out there. Hopefully there'll be a few operators there, sure, and just people to talk to, but it's about getting our name out there and a bit more awareness for MWA. Right?
I think it's the world that we live in now as well, especially with social media and everything around it. Exposing your brand and your company is almost required nowadays, because you can have a solid pool of clientele who rely on you all the time, but you never know when that's going to run out. So exposing your brand and your company and what you guys do and getting buy-in from potential future clientele is always a winner, because you never know when they might come in. Absolutely.
And obviously LinkedIn is a big thing for us, and it is for most in our industry.
Yeah.
It is massive, and we're getting our followers up there. That's something that we started during COVID because we didn't have so much to do and driven it forward. But you would have thought there'd be more LinkedIns out there, wouldn't you? Let's be honest.
Sure.
Because I don't think in our industry TikTok is it, Instagram.
No,
we don't really.
No, why don't
have
we?
An Instagram account, but it struggles to get more followers. It
does. You're right. We don't. We use it more for just social proof. So we're not interested in growing our following. It's more LinkedIn we use.
Yeah.
And I think the approach we take with LinkedIn is more personal branding of the people in the company. So we've got our company page, but we've also got people who are obviously using LinkedIn within the company, and we try and drive the personal brands of those people in the company. So, hopefully clients buy into the people rather than the company, because people buy from people at the end of the day. Like we said earlier, the industry is the same. We're not reinventing the wheel, or there's not really a humongous amount differently. So people buy into the people. So we're trying to drive personal brands for the employees rather than the company side of thing. And I think for us, the company page is more for just social proof and just imagery of people, of projects that we can do. And then hopefully people are looking at the people behind the company as such.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I want to touch on something you said there. You said that you're trying to employ, talented people to come in and help you push to that extra 50%. How difficult do you think it is to employ the talented people in our industry? Because I think there's a real shortage of talent, whether that's on site and in the office as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're the office refurb, so why would we, particularly want people working from home?
Yeah.
We're here to support the offices, aren't we?
Yeah.
So our philosophy is we work from the office, but we're flexible. Okay, rather than you work in the office 2 days a week. So it's 5 days a week, but we're flexible.
Yeah.
And I think that's helped us a lot, actually, because there's a lot of collaboration going on. So the estimator with the design team, they need to be talking. It's quite difficult always on Teams. Based where we are, which is non-London, only 30 miles, it's quite difficult.
Yeah.
It is difficult. It's great for, and I don't mean this to sound derogatory in any way, return to mums around here is amazing.
Yeah.
It's people who have now, kids, they want to go back 3 days a week or something. We've had an amazing finance lady, our COO came from that way, brilliant people. But to get a designer is tricky.
Yeah, I mean, how do you attract them to here rather than the central London or the office in London?
Well, we went to a recruitment agent I think you probably know, and said, look for someone Henley based.
Yeah.
And they went searching, and then we approached, we found someone.
Nice.
And they made an offer. So that's really how, that's how our head of design came.
But, it's difficult I think from the office side of things, like there is, there's people around, but I think more so from the site side of things, there's not as many people coming into the industry.
Yeah, so I mean, it's quite surprising because we've got White Knights from Reading Uni, which is a big estate management uni just up the road, and you would have thought all those types of courses would be applicable over here, but they don't seem to filter through. Our site teams, a lot of them come from Essex and Kent, so they come from the other side and they work in London.
I see.
So we do that as well. We do have a London base as well, but we try to keep more people out here if possible.
Yeah, London's a competitive market. We don't really go into London, to be honest. It's not what we're used to. Obviously, you're used to working in there, so it probably works well for you guys. Yeah,
because we've got a reputation, we've got clients there. There's a lot of listed buildings which we have a lot of experience with and things like that.
So leaning on your experience in the industry, like you've worked project management, quantity surveyors, like design and build now, sounds like you've got holistically, you've got like quite a lot of experience. I'm intrigued to know what your opinion is of the industry as it is now and what it is like going forward. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you want to comment on
it. You can look at it two ways. As I said before, the design and build industry is really professional these days. It's a good industry. There's some really good outfits out there. When you see ISG going, under, it's desperately sad.
Massive.
And we had because of COVID, we took on a residential project, which we wouldn't normally do. We try and stay away. And we on a small scale were tied in to a fixed price lump sum contract, basically.
Yeah, dangerous that.
And then inflation went up to 11%.
Yeah.
And whilst material prices went up 42%. Talk about a sure way to lose money.
Yeah, and that contract value doesn't go up by 12 or 42%.
It goes up by nothing.
Yeah.
So, and it was stressful. And that's the first time we've really ever experienced a really stressful project like that. And then you're looking at what the CEO of ISG has said, and whether it's true or not, they're blaming a lot of the pre-COVID contracts that caused them a lot of pain, and hence the subbies didn't get paid. And Carillion and whatever, 10 years ago went bust. So I don't know if we learnt our lessons. Someone put a very good article or response on LinkedIn, which was, the construction contracts need to change. Sometimes contractors are treated like they really are bottom of the pile.
You're right. You are so right. Like it's actually it's frustrating as well, because I think we've touched on it earlier as well. Those contractors that they are considering bottom of the pile are the reason that the big boys are top of the pile, because they're nothing without those contractors. So if they're burning the relationships, not paying them, and burning bridges with them, like it's and they don't get paid, and then the thing is they don't see the knock-on effect, so they will never see that companies like the stress and the financial issues behind the scenes that they're experiencing, which the directors of these smaller companies are taking home of them, and the knock-on effect is.
I mean, the government brought in some legislation a few years back about paying small subcontractors quicker. I don't know if that's really ever taken effect, but I think the client and the contractor need to be more collaborative. Valuations, waiting for your certificate, then invoicing, then being payment. It's a long period of time. Whereas all the subbies, because they're worried about someone going bust them, want deposits. So it's stress. It puts a lot of stress on contractors' cash flow. And there's got to be easier ways of making money sometimes, you think. So I don't think that's changed, which is disappointing. I think the D&B industry is far better. But when you read the Grenfell report, which I read, I didn't read 1,700 pages of it. I read summaries and went to actually an adjudication seminar last week as well. It was cover up after cover up by 3 particular subcontractors, obviously a cladding and 2 installation contractors. Wrong certificates were issued to try and cover up. The the damage of central government. The tenant organisation treated their residents appallingly. They had 111 out of 142 fire doors weren't up to standard. Weren't up to standard.
Really?
No closures. You know, it's shocking.
Yeah.
No fire risk assessments were up to date, and you know, 72 poor people died.
It's a shame, and that I suppose that might link back to what you were saying earlier about charlatans in the industry back then, who were sort of winging it and just getting by. And obviously that's come and bit them on the arse, and it's so sad what happened at Grenfell. I mean, I don't know a humongous amount about it, just surface level.
I mean, one of the other things that they came up with, one of the summaries was, you know, building control, you know, should they be commercial outfits? You know, question mark, or should they just remain with the council?
There's a huge change to building control this year, especially like you guys. I'm sure you guys have experienced that.
Oh, massive.
It might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I don't actually that the independent building control contractors or companies as such, I fail to see the point in them as such. There's going to be a lot of people who probably disagree, but you know, if they're now putting the, you know, like all of the onus on the designer, the principal contractor, and for some respects the client as well, and all they're doing is basically just sign a certificate. I don't really see where the point is of them, to be honest with you, because like you can just utilise your local authority for stuff. I know that they might be quicker, but it's a bit of a warped thing at the moment going on with the building control. Like it's changed the way that we've worked, and I'm sure changed the way other people have worked. Whether for the majority of it's for the good, to be honest with you, because it's tightened up rogue trades, because like those types of people won't be trading anymore, which I completely understand that, and it's made people trade more legitimately, more by the book. But then again, you know, like those independent building controls and private companies as such, they're shifting the responsibility now to the likes of you and I and the people who are facilitating the projects. So it's an interesting one. I
mean, I like to think the whole industry is a lot more professional.
It is.
You always, you know, we're in commercial. You know, it may be a bit different. You know, I can walk down the street and see on residential, you know, people up scaffold, no PPE on. You know, you see it quite often, don't you? You know, but in the commercial market, I'd like to think that it's much better.
It is a lot better, and there's always going to be problems anyway, like especially with health and safety, because you know, like you can enforce health and safety literally as much as you possibly can, but at the end of the day, when someone's not looking and someone isn't wearing something, then you can't really do anything about that. But yeah, health and safety has become a lot more
onerous.
Yeah, it has. Look, Matt, thank you so much for your time today, by the way. It's been super intriguing to listen to you and listen to you guys as a company and see what you offer. You've had an illustrious career, obviously, so you know almost everything that's gone on in the industry, from the project management perspective and now into the design and build perspective. And it's interesting to hear your point of view of where it is and where it's at and plans for MWA going forward. So I just want to thank you so much for your time today, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you for going to see me.
Thanks, Matt.
It's a pleasure. Cheers. Bye.